delay and welcome to In Conversation with Tibet TV. This is Sakina Bhatt. Today I have with me a researcher on Mongol-Tibet relationship in the 13th century. He has published a number of articles on Tibet in both Tibetan and English. He even co-authored a Tibetan language textbook for Australian National University and is currently working as an executive director for an NGO. His name is Dr. Tenzin Choephak Ringpapontsang. Choephak, welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you here with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So Choephak, tell us something about your research and what got you interested in such a topic.
The tradition in which I studied is the Sakya tradition. So I did my Loben degree from Sakya College. Due to that, I got to study lots of Sakya texts. Through my studies, I've come across this particular text written by a 13th century Sakya Lama, who is called Choephak. He wrote a text, it's titled as The Advice to the King. It just got my interest. I wondered who the king is. It's not very common to see a religious leader writing an advice to a secular king. He wrote that text for the Mongol Khan. It happens to be Kublai Khan, who probably was the most powerful man on earth at that time. It's politically, religiously, and from many different aspects, it's a very significant text. Just by looking through the text, I thought wow, this could be very influential text. What influences and implications it might have for the Mongol Khan and his administration, the way how acted and the way how he administered his regions, because Mongols are known for their brutality. And here is a Tibetan Lama telling him to be compassionate and religious, and so it's quite a contrast. So that was the trigger.
Can you please explain us briefly about the term Sakya tradition?
Sakya tradition, it was founded in 1075 by Könkuncho Gyalpo, and Sakya tradition is hereditary, so it's a familial lineage kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The term Sakya itself derives from the color of the land itself, because Sa in Tibetan means earth, and Kya means something grayish or whitish. Mm-hmm. So the place where the Sakya monastery was first founded by Könkuncho Gyalpo was very pale, so it's a pale earth kind of land. From then on, the name of the place was derived, and the tradition itself became to be known from this land.
So how important do you think it is for the Tibetans to know about their nation's relationship with the Mongols?
Tibetans to be able to have the confidence in controlling the narrative of our history is extremely important, especially when it comes to Tibetan-Mongol relationship. 13th century is critical for Tibetans, because Chinese government and its whole apparatus, including the academics, they've been claiming that Tibet became part of China since the Yuan dynasty, and that's the Mongol Yuan dynasty in China. If we are to look into the history, if we are to find out the facts, we can disprove that. It's not just us reclaiming our history. We can be confident enough and face the world that this is our history, and these are the fictions that Chinese government has been propagating until now.
How tough is it to complete a PhD on such a specific topic, which is the Mongols and Tibet relationship in the 13th century, and what were the challenges that you had to face when you were writing a thesis on this topic?
Yeah, there were many challenges, logistical challenges, because as a Tibetan, and also someone putting on this monk's robes, if you are to do a research on Mongol-Sakya relationship, you would certainly want to go to Tibet and find out. Sakya monastery in Tibet is a great repository of ancient Buddhist texts, and many of these texts are from 13th century itself. and it is still existing, it's still there. I would certainly want to look into those texts as primary sources, but I wasn't able to do that because there's no way that I could get a visa or be allowed into Tibet. That's the first obstacle that I had to...
Have you been to Tibet anyway?
No, not at all. Yeah, so that's the first hindrance, obstacle that I had to face. And then secondly, in the academic world, if you are to, as a Tibetan, I mean, and also, again, as someone donning these Buddhist monks' robes, whatever you write, whatever you speak in presentations, supervisors and many of academics that sit around in the room would see it as bias. They would always say, I mean, is this from an unbiased perspective? You could be looking at it from a very biased perspective as a Tibetan.
Can you tell us one of the incidents?
There have been a couple of incidences like this because China is, I mean, they have a big cloud in every aspect of our life these days, and academic life is not an excuse. The Chinese influences in our universities, including the Australian National University, is immense. Whenever we speak or give presentations, Chinese students would come, and there would be academics who specializes in China and the Chinese studies. They would always see you as someone like from a Tibetan background. They would always see you as someone biased.
One of the unique aspects of Mongol and Tibet equation is the relationship of the Mongol emperors and the successive Dalai Lamas. So can you tell us something about that, especially about the conferring of the title, the Dalai Lama?
The relationship between the Dalai Lamas and especially the conferring of the title itself, it is actually beyond the scope of my research, because I'm focused in the Mongol-Tibet relationship in 13th century. But I'm aware of the fact that the Mongols, especially Altan Khan, was the first to invite the third Dalai Lama to Mongolia.
Which century was that?
That's in 16th century.
16th
Yeah,
century.
there's a huge time gap between what I've been focusing and that period.
By chance, do you know which Dalai Lama was it?
It's the third Dalai Lama, the Sonam Gyatso. He was invited to Mongolia. Altan Khan, he himself doesn't belong to the Chinggisid or the Chinggis Khan lineage. Many academics see it as Altan Khan's attempt to legitimize his rule in that area of particular Mongol area as a mandate, and to legitimize his rule, he wanted to build a relationship with Tibetan Lama just to emulate the Pakpa, Chögye Pakpa and Kublai relationship, and make a relationship with the third Dalai Lama, Sonam Gyatso. That's a narrative that many academics prescribe.
So what are your plans for the future as an academic, and how do you think that you can contribute to the telling of Tibet's history to the newer global audience?
First of all, I need to publish my thesis, and I've been thinking of doing that for quite some time, but I didn't get time because right after submitting my PhD dissertation, I took up this job working for an NGO because it was focused on educating underprivileged people. I didn't get much time to focus on my academic career. I will do it sometime, like, although it's late, but better late than never. I keep on writing and publishing articles which focus on Tibet-Mongol relationships. Especially, I'm interested in the power of discourse, how Tibetan Lamas were able to speak truth to power. As a Tibetan, it is very crucial for us to, as I said earlier, to take control of the historical narrative. We must be able to project and face that kind of challenges and present a narrative that's more closer to the facts rather than fiction that's been propagated by the PRC.
Finally, do you have any piece of advice for the young Tibetans who are pursuing or aspiring to pursue their PhD in their respective fields?
First of all, I would like to tell them that it's obvious that they would be facing lots of challenges, lots of obstacles. Especially, we are a new generation whose predecessors, like our parents, doesn't have any educational background, or some of them are even illiterate. So we wouldn't have that kind of a support from our family. Also, educational guidance some people in the West would receive from their parents and family. Also, the academic criticisms about biased views would always be there, but we should pursue it with persistence and determination. Get to the point where you want to achieve your goal. There'll be lots of difficulties, but we must always work with diligence and perseverance.
So is there anything that you want to say, whatever?
Yes, through my research, one thing that I have figured out is that the power of our religion and culture. We can claim that we are a superpower when it comes to our culture and religion. So in case of the Mongol emperor, the Mongols have been destroying and even annihilating some of the countries and races from the face of this earth during 13th century. But when it came to the Tibetans, we were able to conquer the conquerors through our through the power of our religion and culture. Although they were able to control with brute force, we were able to control their minds and their hearts through our message of compassion, peace, and certainly the rich cultural heritage that we have from our ancestors. At this time of our history, we are facing a very difficult, dire situation with the Chinese occupation of our homeland. But if we see the value of our religion and culture, we will be surely able to one day conquer the conqueror. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Choephak. It was wonderful to have this conversation with you today.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching, and see you in our very next episode of In Conversation with Tibet TV.